Hi, so today we're talking about why so many people love morally gray characters. I think a lot of people love morally gray characters, myself included. And I think one of the questions is this because we are morally gray? And I think probably not for most of us. Um, I think it's much more akin to some of the theories behind why a lot of women who read romance really like domineering men or domineering male characters in these romances. And it's not necessarily a desire to be dominated, it's more that a lot of women or like female presenting people tend to be told to be quieter, they tend to be told to be accommodating and polite. And with these male dominating characters, we can vicariously sort of live through them, right? We can be loud, we can have an action toward bias through this character. So it's not that we want to experience what this character is putting out, it's more that we're kind of identifying with this character expressing emotions that we so often repress. This is a particularly potent character type, and I think the same thing happens with morally gray characters. So let's dig into a little bit more. But one of the things I think that's attractive about morally gray characters is that we personally can't behave in such an aggressive way without there being social or physical consequences. And so having morally gray characters is kind of a form of processing and kind of a form of wish fulfillment at the same time. I think this theory holds a lot of water because morally gray characters and domineering male characters kind of have some overlap, and one of the things they have in common is that they can cross social boundaries in terms of violence and aggression. I used to be a bit horrified that I identified with these character types so strongly, um, until I went to a training recently for work about crisis management for students who are in a state of crisis. And one of the things that the instructor brought up, a clinical psychologist, she brought up, is that often when people are considering self-harm, they are feeling trapped. And often when they are considering aggression towards others or harm towards others, they're feeling attacked. And I never thought of it that way before, and I'm not trying to generalize mental health responses or mental health struggles or challenges or anything like that. But I think many of us feel attacked in our daily lives. Like, it's not unusual to feel somewhat assaulted or assailed just in daily interactions, just because of being human, you know, and having characters that uh, allow you to process feelings where you want to push back, right? Feelings where you want to push back or feelings where you'd be more aggressive without those social or physical consequences can be really satisfying, right? This can be really satisfying. So I think it's worth pointing out that having aggressive thoughts is normal when you feel like you're being attacked and you need to defend yourself. And having characters that represent that allows us to kind of work through those feelings with a bit of distance, right? With a bit of distance, which I think is probably healthy and helpful and honestly fairly normal. I think morally gray characters serve as kind of a way for a lot of us who've experienced some kind of conflict in our daily lives to release that aggression, basically, is what I'm saying. We can see ourselves in the humanness of the morally gray character, so we can relate, but they're not so high on a pedestal, and they normally have good reasons for what they're doing, at least from their perspective, and so we can kind of relate to what's going on there. Add on top of that morally gray characters give us a mental or an emotional outlet for aggression or for conflict. And I think this kind of explains why so many of us are drawn to them. So at the end of the day, just because you like morally gray characters doesn't mean that you yourself want to live those behaviors in daily life. So enjoy your Tyrion Lannisters, your Lokis, and your Edmond Dantes, my own personal favorite.